All right, everybody, we're going to get started. I want to thank you guys for jumping on the call today. Before we get started, just a little disclaimer here. I'm not sure if you guys have seen what's going on in Texas, but we've had some, for all of you in the north, please don't laugh. 2 inches of ice and snow, or 3 inches of ice and snow, and the world's ending down here. We can't drive or function or do anything. So we still got about 5 million Texans without power. So in the event that I had power, I've lost power for 36 hours, just got it last night. So if all of a sudden I go blank, we're having rolling outages, so I could plop off the screen again. So appreciate you guys jumping on here. This Remo technology is really cool. Chet and Michelle Riley and I have been looking at this technology and trying to collaborate a little bit and using it. I really feel like it's a better setup for what we're going to do today, which is interactive calling and stuff. So please, if you can, go to that Q&A section and input questions, and I'll try to get to them. But really, this is designed to be interactive. And so Chet is in the background, and Michelle may be in the background too. And if you want to share something, we want everyone to share, be very interactive. Just click that raise your hand button and share, and then they'll pull you on stage, and you can talk about it a little bit. And we're excited about this technology. I think it's something that can be really beneficial for us moving forward. So just a quick question about, I guess I'm so technologically non-advanced that I posted this on my personal Facebook page instead of the I9 Sports web page. And so Nick and Kelvin had asked to attend, and in the interest of privacy, I declined that offer since this is an owner's forum, and I incorrectly posted it. So they are not on here. So we are able to share openly what we think. If we need to say something that's not so positive about the home office, we can do that. I am recording it. They've asked for the recording, but I'm going to see how it goes and share that if I have to. But bottom line is here, we're here to talk about flag football. I apologize for not being quite as prepared as I normally would be. So if it seems a little bit dysfunctional because of the last 48 hours, I've had to dismantle my pool, do a lot of stuff that I'm not very handy at, and we've had some difficulties here. So really, this is an open forum, but just to speak briefly about flag football. So I started back in 2007. All I did was flag football for the first three and a half, 4 years, and so I feel like, and that was just me doing it. Several locations, actually 3 locations on Saturday and Sunday. So I have a pretty good feel on where flag football started and kind of how the genesis has occurred over the years with I9. And so here's my best 1-minute spiel about flag football. To me, we're struggling in flag football. We know that. We've got Under Armour. We've got NFL flag. Lots of things are happening in flag football that make it a struggle for us to be the leader. If we're supposed to be, quote unquote, the leader in youth sports, we're not the leader in flag football. We know that. We've had some discussions about it on the I9 Facebook page that we don't look like the leader, and I'm not sure we can be the. I'm not sure we can be the grassroots go-to rec sports program for soccer, flag football, basketball, baseball, t-ball, lacrosse, and volleyball, but also be the expert in flag football. There's been a lot of discussion, especially lately. A few years in the past, some of you guys are on the call. We're on a panel that talked about how do we create a more competitive version and how do we rebrand it. And so one really cool thing is I had a conversation with Chris Schneider 2 weeks ago. That guy is going to be a fantastic addition to our staff. He has a wealth of knowledge in all of sports. He has some fantastic ideas about how to bridge the gap. We need to bridge the gap between rec sports and select sports. And I feel like one of the reasons we've been successful down here in Houston is that I kind of did that from the start. I said, I want to be a step up from upward Y rec programs. I do not want to be 3 days a week practice and highly competitive over the top. So where's that middle ground? And I think that's how we've kind of kept players in a little longer, is in a lot of my age groups, I'm able to have a beginner division and an advanced division. The all teams sign up, stay in one division. The beginners stay in one division. You don't have that crossover. Now I have plenty of small leagues too, where I see the problem that most of us have in I9 is that I only got 100 kids signed up. So I've got to have the advanced 9-year-old on the same team as the brand new 7-year-old. That just doesn't work very well. So this is, again, designed to talk about a lot of things to try to help that. But I think Chris has some really good ideas, and we've got a focus group starting next week about that to try to help improve that. But what I was going to say about flag football is I think with all sports that you have, we have so many new parents that don't know what to expect or have an expectation in their mind of what they've seen on TV or what they're expect, and they show up at our field and they say, this is not what I expected, or this is not what I was thinking I was going to see. And so because of that, I try to make, when you walk out to my field, I try to make it look like what you're going to see on TV. I do 6-on-6 volleyball only. I don't do 4-on-4. I do 6-on-6 flag football and have for a long time. I would do 7 if I could, but the field just doesn't. We can't get 4 fields with 7-on-7. It's a little bit too wide. The field's not big enough. My soccer has goalies after age 5 and up. I try to make it look like what they're going to see on TV, or as close to what they see on TV, so that expectation is not different when they walk out on the field. My flag football program is very competitive. It's far from everyone's a winner and everyone gets a trophy. It's not that. And I think that's why it's grown. I think that's why I've had some success in some areas. But honestly, the key there is to adapt, right? It looks totally different when I started. So we just have to continue to try to listen to your customer, take feedback from when you have a quality coach that comes out and you can tell he's a tackle football guy and he's got a team there and he wants to do certain rules or talk about different things. I think that's important to try to listen, not necessarily implement, but over the years, I think Jason Watson cannot be on this call because he's still got no power, but we have had a lot of discussions and we have changed rules and changed things over the years to try to make it as real as possible. And I want to qualify that statement. It needs to look like what you have regionally. So what looks great in Texas and what works here is not necessarily what's going to work in Florida or California or with DuPont up in Wisconsin. You need to look at your local chapters, local tackle leagues, local 7-on-7 leagues, and you need to mimic as much as you can those particular leagues. I think that's one of the real struggles we have at I-9 is that the home office would like us to all look the same, and that's just not the way it works. I'm going to give you a good example. Volleyball. I've started all-girls volleyball here. It's been fantastically successful, but we don't have boys playing. And it's not because I don't want boys playing. It's because in Texas, there's no boys volleyball anywhere. We don't have it at the school level. We don't have it. There's no clubs. So when I-9 tries to ask us to have it made co-ed, we're losing players because I have to let boys sign up, only a couple. And when the season starts, I have to then tell them, your boys division didn't make, go do something else. And so I think the key there is, and I've articulated this to Chris, and I think we're going to continue to work on this, is that we have to focus locally. So I'm just looking at names. What works for Larry Jackson in Florida may not work for me in Texas. And I know for those folks that live in the Pacific Northwest and West Coast, boys volleyball is big. I get it. UCLA's men's volleyball program is a big deal. Karch Kiraly, the whole thing. So they need to have co-ed volleyball. But I don't think in Texas I should have co-ed volleyball when no boys play volleyball. So that kind of leads us into the flag football discussion, which is you have to look locally at what is working in your area. And that's what people are going to want to see, the progression, right? I know you guys know that the NFL Players Association just bought NFL Flag. Another competitor of ours called One Sports Nation, there was about 50 of them across the country, just got bought out by Gridiron Football. And basically One Sports Nation was all sports, just like us, volleyball, soccer, basketball. And they told them, you have to have football only, you have to drop your other sports. They canceled their NBA license, their Major League Baseball license, and made it so that all they can do is football. And that's a hard thing for us to compete against, right? How do we compete I-9 Sports, 7 Sports, more of a grassroots feel when Under Armour puts up Under Armour Under the Lights, full uniform, Friday nights, under the lights, or NFL flag when they got Russell Wilson as their spokesperson. I think it's a real challenge for us, and I think that's the challenge that we're going to face with Chris. And I'm an FAC member again this year, and it's one of the main focuses is how do we give a model that's at least comparable. And to me, it's got to be locally. I've got to allow Jonathan Yang, who I don't know very well, but wherever he lives, he's got to research what works for him in his area and what the 7-on-7 leagues and the tackle leagues are doing, and then create a program that fits into that model. So even if we are the starter league or the grassroots program, at least there's a progression where they start in his program and it looks similar to it's 6-on-6, whatever the, whatever the rules, get the rules to look like what the next advancement up is going to be, and allow us to grow that way. Because look, we have to realize that we're a 3 to 10-year-old at best program, right? Our senior leagues, they're just not really very good, and they're not going to be good. I don't think we can be the best at 3, 4, 5, 6 and 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We can't unless we do a different brand and do a new program, which is something we've discussed. But the point is, we got to be able to create a grassroots program that starts 3, 4, 5, 6, but keeps them. The key here is we've got to be able to keep that child 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 2 daughters, 10 and 9 years old. We're still playing I-9, but we're too good for I-9. I do a practice during the week for the team, and I manage it the best I can, but it's very obvious to me that probably as of last year, my girls need to be playing select volleyball and select soccer. And they're not because of the pandemic, and we're not comfortable with that totally yet. But the point is, if we can create a program that goes from age 3 to age 10, I mean, that's fantastic. Keeping a kid for 8 years in a program, we'd all be very happy with that. And yes, we're going to have a senior league that has a few kids in it, but we need to focus on that younger group. So I talked a lot longer than I thought I was going to, so I apologize. I'm going to jump on this Q&A and answer some questions, but I want people to be interactive. We've got Chet and those guys on the background that can plug you guys in. So Nate Fleming's first question. Oh, hey, there's Michelle Riley.
Wait, sorry about that. My call went much later than it should have. People like to hear themselves talk sometimes. Sorry about that. So
I understand that. I was supposed to have a 2-minute intro, and I'm 12 minutes in, so sorry.
Not alluding to you at all. All right, so you're good. If you want help bringing people on stage, hey everybody, we've been using this platform for a while. I think Scott probably introduced it and Chet did, but it's pretty cool. We think it's fantastic. I mean, just so much better than Zoom. And you guys can actually come on stage, which is what this is, and ask your questions. So Scott, I'm going to disappear, but Scott, you can bring them up. If you're having trouble, I'll help you out on the back end. Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. So I'm going to answer a couple of questions that I have in here that I'd like you guys to continue to add those if you could. So Nate Fleming asked, for Pee Wee, the rule book says go one directional using half the field. Are ADs doing that, or are you going full? I have never done that particular rule. I've always gone full. I think to me, it falls back on what they're used to seeing is a full field. Now we condense the field a little bit and make it a shorter distance for them to run, but the one directional is a little confusing. It can be at sometimes. So we do full field, full field flag football. So they are going, not that there's a lot of throwing going on in the Pee Wee division, but developmentally, I think it's still good for them to realize, hey, I'm going this way and they're going that way, because as soon as they age up, then they're getting confused. Well, aren't we starting this way and going backwards, or are we going both multi-directional? So, would anyone like to weigh in on that? I can't see necessarily yet, Michelle, if anyone's asking to jump on stage, but if anyone would like to answer that themselves, that'd be great. Aaron Finger has this question. Well, let's bring Aaron on stage. No, didn't do that right. Larry. Let's see if I can do this here. All right, Larry Jackson wants to come on stage. And there's Aaron. I took him off accidentally. Okay. Hey, Michelle, help me out. Let's bring Aaron on stage. He had his hand up first. I'm not doing it correctly, obviously.
All right. I don't know.
Jonathan, that's great. I'm glad you're here. Go ahead.
Yeah. So to Nate's question, so we started the one directional, and then we realized that kids were getting confused because what we did was we we did, like you said, we basically condensed the field, but made it 2-directional. So because the full field is too long for the younger kids, so basically what we did was we did half a field. So because you know how like you do the no run zones at the half zone, so basically that. So we basically condensed it into one full field in both directions, so that way they understand which way to go.
Awesome, Jonathan. That's exactly. Go Spartans.
Go green.
Go green. All right. Michelle, going to bring Aaron on. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see here.
Jonathan, go ahead and take your mic and camera off, and you'll pop off stage.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, man.
Aaron, you're on, buddy. What's up?
This is awesome. I love this. I just wanted to make sure you got the technical bugs worked out, Scott. This is good.
Well, the technical bugs get worked out when I don't have any control of them. That's how it works. When you get smarter people than you doing it, then you're in good shape. But go ahead, Aaron. What you got?
I like this. First of all, thanks for hosting this and putting it together. This is a cool platform. I think it's definitely great for what we're doing for sure. Anyhow, just wanted to weigh in on this because I have both scenarios happening. I have some locations that are used to full field 4-on-4 or the regular format, and the coaches that have been playing there for a while, they just didn't really want to change it up much. But for some of my other locations where I have more kids, we are doing the half field 4-on-4 format. And it's been working out quite well. I think the parents are really liking it because they can park on one sideline and see the entire game from start to finish. They're cheering on their kids left and right. There's a lot more touches on the ball. I'm not sure if you guys are doing the 4-on-4 format with that condensed field, but I just wanted to say that, if you haven't tried it yet, some parents are actually liking it. The coaches are liking it. It's a lot easier to manage instead of walking up and down the whole field. It's 4 downs until the end zone, and just lots of scoring, lots of cheering. Parents are happy, and you can also get more kids, more games happening at the same time, which I like. You have 4 teams playing versus just the 2 teams. If you're limited on field space, it's a great way to add more kids to the mix.
Aaron, that's great perspective. And I think the thing to remember here, folks, is that, again, there's not one way to do this right. Like, I think if you came to my flag football and saw people that, that looks pretty good. And then you would go to Aaron's and he's doing something totally different, but that also looks pretty good. And that's the beauty of having a franchise and being able to impact what you do at the local level. And that's why sharing like this is so important, because that's a great example of Aaron's doing a great job. He's got great 360 scores, so we know it's working. So just because I do it one way doesn't mean that's the way to do it. We all can collaborate and have different ways to do it. And I think that's a great testament to doing something different. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, and it's also just, you have to play to your audience, right? So if the coaches and people are unhappy from the get-go and parents are just like, what the hell is this? But if you have a new venue and you want to try something out where it hasn't been done yet, why not give it a shot? Because, you might be surprised.
Aaron, that's awesome. Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing. I'm going to bring up Mr. Larry Jackson next.
All right, now how do I turn off?
Great job.
There you
go. Maybe I brought him up.
Hey, Scott.
There he is.
How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Larry. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, brother. What you got?
I think I'm mostly echoing what we're hearing here, and that's that, you got to play to your audience. I don't do the half field version with football. I have done it with soccer. And I think the reason for that had to do with participation numbers. I needed the field space. I split it in half, made 2 fields out of it. So I made it work that way for little kids, for the peewee size soccer, obviously we're talking about. And with football, I haven't done it that way. I mean, I do have a 3- and 4-year-old football only, and we let them run the whole field. We don't change directions at halftime. That's the only thing that we don't do differently.
I would agree with that there. We don't do that either. We just kind of go one. Oldest kids, we do it, but for the younger kids, hey, if you can get them to take that snap and run the right direction, let's not mix them up on the next round, because that's going to just
absolutely.
Good stuff, Larry. What else you got? Anything else?
Not at the moment. I'll jump
Awesome,
back
man.
on if something else comes to my brain. See you, buddy.
Thanks, brother. All right. So I'm liking this. All right, let's go to the next question. So Nate had another question about, had a lot of complaints about the the quality of the flag and the flag's not coming off. I have to echo that I think our flag belt is not very good. In fact, it's terrible, honestly. Having it connected all around, the 3 or 4 flags are all sewn on the belt, so the full belt has to come off, I think is a negative, and we need to change that as soon as possible. When you look at the better leagues, they typically have the flag that the belt stays on, and then the flag just comes off. So that you are definitely not the only one having that issue, and it is something that I'm going to make a note here to try to get that changed, which, as you know, changing things is challenging with our home office sometimes, but let's just put that on the list here of better flag belts. So anybody want to weigh in on that? I think we would all agree that our flag belts could be certainly better. So we're good on that one. So Russ Deary asks, we've had some confusion around the no run zone. The rule book says something along the lines of to prevent power runs. One of our better refs interpreted that as no runs, no inside runs only. Is that right? Somebody else, I'd love for you to weigh in, but I'm going to tell you that my interpretation of the no run zone is you cannot run the ball within that 5-yard area, which is typically 5 yards before the 50 to get the first down and 5 yards before the goal line. And so we allow a pass of any kind. It can be behind the line of scrimmage as long as it is a actual pass and not a lateral. If somebody else would like to weigh in on that, but Russ, my interpretation and the way I've always done it, and I think the way most of us have done it, is that it has to be a pass and you cannot run the ball in that area. I have had coaches who will have a first down, get pulled in the no-run zone, have the quarterback snap the ball and kneel down outside the no-run zone, so the next 2 rounds they can throw it. My throw-only teams, that's what they'll do. And so we do not have no-run zones for the Pee-wees because they can't throw the ball. They're lucky to be running the correct direction. So typically, Pee-wee, there is no run zone. You just play regular football. And then sophomore, junior, senior, starting at, for those of you that run 3-year-old football, I don't. But to me, it's 6 and up have to throw the ball inside the no-run zone. And that can be not a lateral. It has to be an overhand pass. It doesn't have to be past line of scrimmage. No one's going in. That's good. Let's go to the next one. So Joey asks, marketing tips for promoting the league. Man. So I have a marketing director, and I don't do any marketing. So if someone would like to hop in there, that'd be great. I'll look for somebody coming on. But I think marketing is hard for us. And I'm going to address something that I was talking to somebody about on on a call today about our website. Back in the old days, you had your own website, or at least your own page, right? So it said, Scott Reed, the Woodlands, Spring Klein, whatever. Now, because we've gone national, I think it's a lot more difficult because there's no local flavor anymore. It's just put in your zip code. Here's Houston, Texas. Here's 75 locations you can play football at. And it really makes it tough. And our new website, while I like parts of it, I don't really like the Pee-wee, junior, senior breakdown. And I also don't like how it's just very generalized. And I feel like that hurts us a little bit as far as from the marketing perspective, that if I go to our website, I think I'm looking at a league that runs a bunch of different sports. And so if I'm a flag football hardcore guy, I'm probably going to pass on 9 sports because I see volleyball and softball and volleyball and lacrosse and soccer. So to me, and not that we can change that, right? We lose credibility the minute we have all those sports as a flag football league. I'm sure I'm speaking for the majority of us that the most competitive sport I have is flag football by far and away. The most difficult coaches I have, the most issues I have is with flag football. And it goes without saying that a lot of people that are flag football enthusiasts want hardcore flag football. And I'm in Texas, so look, we're crazy down here with football. So I don't know if I'm speaking for everybody else, but to me, that's a struggle for us. I only really have one really good flag football league here in Houston. It's because of where I live, and I started a long time ago. But the other places we lose out because I don't think we look like the most. Like if you go to Under Armour under the lights and look at us Under Armour, I mean, if you're a hardcore football player, you're picking Under Armour 100% of the time. There's no way you're not. And I'm not saying that's anything we've done wrong. It's just where we are in the marketplace. So marketing tips for the league, Joey, I would say you have to just try to – I'd go to the tackle leagues. I've had a lot of success talking to the tackle leagues saying, look, now, unfortunately, they have a lot of those that started running flag. This was a while ago. So now most of them run flag because their tackle numbers are down. So I feel like that's a harder thing. So if someone wants to weigh in, I'd love to hear better marketing tips, but I'm probably not the best for that. But you certainly – if you want to email me offline, my marketing director, I'd be glad to send her stuff that she does.
Hey, Scott, I invited Joey up to the stage. Joey,
come on, Joey, get on the stage.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself. You'll pop up there, pal. There you go.
I get a little camera shy sometimes.
There you go.
No, you answered it. I mean, we've had steady growth, and especially in our younger leagues. But it's really like you just said, like, am I trying to go after something that the kids are aging out and not coming back? So I'm just trying to figure out, should we be focusing on that or just allow it to happen?
Well, stay on the. But here's what Chris and I have talked about, along with Steve Cox and some others, is how do we separate? I think we're great 4, 5, 6, 7 flag football league. I think developmentally we've got it right. I think where we lose out is when you try to go higher end and more competitive, and we don't. Under Armour's got a full uniform with Under Armour, and we've got good old YBA, double fly, sticky jersey. That's not cool. That's far from cool. And so our new jersey will help a little bit, but we need to come up with another branding of our older kids group. And I think that's where Chris and the group, we've got a task force that's starting in a week or so. It's going to focus on that aspect. The only way for us to get there, in my opinion, is to almost I-93, I-92, some kind of add-on. It can't be the same. But we went through this a few years ago with a couple of the ADs, and it's really challenging because we've created this nice program. And the hard thing is going to be for me to say to you, Joey, as a customer, hey, you know what? We've got this elite program and this regular flag program. And you know what? Your son, he's just not good enough quite yet so how do you draw that line, right? And you want him in there, and let's just say for the sake of the argument, he's good enough. Where do we come up with a criteria or set of drafting rules or something that allows kids to play up or play down? Because as soon as we do that, you're going to have kids who shouldn't be, just like if you look at select baseball around, there's a bunch of kids playing select sports. They got no business playing select. They're just there because A, there's no other option, and B, their dad says, hey, my kid's select baseball. Here's my $400. You can't, I'm coming, right? So then that's the trouble with select, right? And I've got a bunch of buddies who have all their kids in select, and they're like, it sucks. I hate it, but it's either that or don't play, or go play I-9 once a week. So we've got to come up with that model that fits in the middle. And that's a challenge. That's a real challenge given what we are. If you go to our website and you look at who we represent what we are. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 intro sports, learning the game and moving on. So I think that's a real challenge for us. Another good question, which is the blocking thing. Man, I have spent hours on this trying to figure out what's best. Currently where we are, and I'd like you to weigh in too to get some difference, is that we do not allow any blocking. And here's how we interpret it. Some leagues will have, if I'm the ball carrier and I start running down the field, everybody else on the offense has to stop. I don't do that because that's not real football. What we tried is you can run down the field, you can run interference or pick, whatever you want to call it. But as soon as the offensive player who does not have the ball intentionally directs towards you as a defender, then he can be called for blocking. Really tough, okay? Tough to interpret, right? We're running, you're running right next to me. Here comes a defender, you veer off and run into him. Well, that's pretty obvious. And so that's where we've landed through lots of stuff. But the blocking piece is something that probably needs to be readdressed, because if we're going to look like football as much as possible and be like 7-on-7, which is what's trending right now, they allow some guys in the front to essentially block or interfere. So what do you guys do, Joey?
We try to get our mic on then.
It's good. Tech. I'm a tech loser. Don't worry. I'm the worst.
No worries. So we've struggled with this. As we said, no form of blocking is allowed. The position we've taken is these kids don't have padding. So if you block them and knock them down. So mostly parents have bought into that. Coaches have had a hard time with this, especially the ones that are all in. I mean, they're building their team. They want to be Bill Belichick. I mean, that's their thing. And that's a whole nother issue. But sometimes they bring up good points. If you're playing 6-on-6, what do you want the other 4 kids to do that paid to play? They want to do something. So are they standing there and watching the ball carrier? So I like what you said about running interference, but then it becomes a gray area. What is interference now? What is approved interference versus not approved interference?
Well, so it's kind of like judging, right? You're judging ice skating. I mean, they did a triple spin, but it wasn't technically good. I mean, it's really hard, right? So I've not, having done the football for like almost 15 years now and had lots of coaches come through, we've had lots of discussions, and we've landed on this as best practice currently. But it, again, man, the ref could call it a lot, right? So when he calls it, I get a lot of emails about Scott. I mean, this play, he called interference. The next play, the guy tripped the guy, but it was unintentional. It's just a tough subject to cover. But I think the bigger question is, we need to look at locally, a 7-on-7 is big here, and what they're doing, and maybe try to mimic that. And I think that's where we can improve. And I think that blocking is just tough. You're right. We can't actually, the word blocking that's no good. We got no pads or helmets. So the last thing we want to do is have somebody plowing into somebody else. But running interference or getting in the way, I like to call it, it got in the way enough to get the defender, just like flag guarding, right? You could call flag guarding a lot. Kid's running, right? He's running. And so you're reaching for the flag at the same time he's pumping his arm back. Well, now you're blocking the flag, but were you blocking the flag or were you just running? So really tough. I don't have a definitive answer, but it's something that, what do you guys do for, do you have 1 ref or 2 ref on the fields?
Senior, everybody else, we have 1. If I can get it with 1 for seniors, I would, but you can't. I've tried it, but you can't.
Got it. Larry, did you have something for us?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we do 1 ref, but we do not allow blocking. We don't allow the blocking or the screening down the field, and we don't for you guys talked about. Obviously, kids can get hurt, and it's not part of the game. It's not part of the flag football game, right? It's once the ball crosses the line of scrimmage in an offensive player's hands, then the rest of the offense is supposed to stay back. They don't. They run down the field too, and that's okay as long as they don't impede the defender. So, then that's the real key: is you can't impede the defenders, the defender. So now we do allow, like your center or whoever's standing next to the center to hold their position from the rusher. So the rusher has to find another route, but they can't juke in front of them and intentionally run the direction they're running. They have to hold their position and force the defender to run around them at that point. But that slows down those older age groups for the 7-yard. We use bean bags, but from the 7-yard bean bag, that's how we slow them down. But and that works. So,
I like that. Why don't you guys stay
allowed the screen pass that you're allowing, like you mentioned, is the screen pass being caught behind the line of scrimmage. We've always forced the ball to be received beyond the line of scrimmage, unless it's a lateral or backward. But that's worked out pretty well for us too. Sometimes I question myself. Maybe we should just allow the screen pass so we're not, fighting with that one, because our refs are never quite in a position to see that. I train our refs to stand behind the rushing beanbag, because that's where they're going to get the best view of the whole game. as opposed to line of scrimmage. If the little kids, they ref from line of scrimmage, but from kindergarten up behind the beanbag.
Go ahead, Joey. You were gonna.
Yeah, I agree with that, Larry. I learned the hard way. We're saying the no run zone. The biggest reason we're saying the no run zone is kid safety. Well, when we were allowing those passes, forward passes behind the line of scrimmage, it almost looks like a run. So you're kind of, I was getting questions saying, isn't it the same thing? Like in front, the same thing's happening. There's a lot of action right there. So we wanted it to happen, and then we backed off of it because parents, I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong here, but I'm saying parents made a very, very good point. The no run zone is to protect kids, and the shovel passes, in my opinion, they're making a good point that it's the same thing as running the ball inside the 5.
Correct.
So to kind of qualify that, it has to be an overhand pass on ours, and it cannot be a shovel forward. It has to be to the side. But I get where you're coming from. So what I was getting was the super competitive guys were like, look, they're crowding the line. I can't get the pass off. And so by throwing it backwards, an overhand pass, at least allow them to play. But I want to touch on something else Larry said too, which is one thing that's helped with the rushers is we put the older kids at 10 yards and sometimes even 12 yards back. Because if you have, a smart coach is going to do two things in flag football. He's going to take his two best athletes. He's going to take his first best athlete and put him as the rusher. And his second best athlete is going to be the kind of the defensive back safety in the middle of the field, right? And so if that rusher, if he's coming off that snap count right, the 7-second pass, that's a joke because that dude is in your backfield by the time you're at 3. So by backing them up a little farther, it's helped teams get a little more time to get the pass off, but also allow more of the play to develop and kids to get out of the way before the rusher gets in there. Everyone's starting to move to their routes because what Joey's saying is exactly right. The cluster of kids in the middle is the issue with safety and running into each other or having accidents or falling down. So, hey, we got Alex Martinez on here. What you got, Alex? Oh, and Larry, go ahead first. You were going to say something.
Just real quick, I wanted to tap on that. And what we allow for those older age groups where the kids are getting back there so quick, we allow the quarterback to run if they're rushed. Okay? And that diffuses the whole thing because now if you give it to an athletic quarterback, they can run only if they're rushed.
So I want to
not in the no run zone.
Yeah, I want to address that as a group, but Alex, go ahead. Stay on the call. Stay on it. Alex, go ahead and weigh in. I want to because that's another question we have is what about the quarterback running? But let's go with Alex first on what we're talking about.
Absolutely, great topic. We should have done this a lot earlier in our I-9 careers. Something that has helped us, and I'm going to piggyback on what we're talking about is I started traveling teams among my senior age group. And Scott, to your point, we can do things regionally in our area that I can do it very easily, but maybe Larry or Jason can't do it over there in Texas because it's just too far. I share both of my franchises. In my elite program about 5-6 years ago, I had 4 teams in one franchise and 4 teams when I acquired the other franchise, and I kept them separated for the first year, for the first couple of seasons. And then very, very quickly, we had people signing up for both franchises, and they're like, wait, why don't we just start playing together? And I'm very, very stubborn. I stick to what's written, and I find the loopholes as to what fits in our area. But I quickly found out that once I went to the travel aspect of it with my senior division, the 12.5 to 15-year-olds, it worked out great. I consistently have at least 8 teams playing. I've had as much as 14 teams playing in the travel division. It's brought the excitement that flag football in the Miami-Dade County area needs. It's a highly competitive area where football is king. Even though LeBron and Dwayne Wade brought basketball here, it's still a football town. I don't care what anyone tells me. We could have horrible teams, but people are still going to love their football. So that has helped. I would love to find a way, and it's difficult to invite that to the junior group to bring travel, my 9 through the young 12-year-olds, because then we have siblings that are playing in the Pee-wees, and then we have seniors, and then the parents are out there also. I would love to do it for the juniors, but I haven't for that reason because our core group is that 7 to 10-year-old playing flag football, and mom and dad are just doing it, rec. even though it's competitive, it's still a rec league. We're known as a rec league. The travel brings that extra excitement. Some parents actually shy away from it because they want to stick to the rec league. Well, that's not what we offer in this age group. You're playing with 8th, 9th, and 10th graders, and you have some 7th graders that are in there as well that are seasoned and veteran players. So the travel part has helped my senior division in flag football because the junior division sees them when they travel to that venue and they're looking at it. Hey, look at that. That's an intense flag football program. It's not boring like I am now playing it for 4 or 5 seasons. As far as with touching a point with, I don't allow blocking either. I have 2 rules, and again, it's subjective to the area. The rule says, for us, is the players got to keep running forward the minute they can stop. But most of them keep running their patterns. They don't even know that the ball is thrown, and they just keep running their things. My referees look out that if they interfere with the defender pulling the flag, then that's going to be like they're going to throw a flag because the defender has to have a clear straight line to the flag. If that's obstructed, my ref is throwing a flag. Also with the we haven't talked about this, but the impeding the rusher rule is something that in the highly competitive program with the seniors, but it also happens with the juniors. We don't allow a direct line to the center. We can have multiple blitzers as long as they're 7 yards back for the juniors and 9 yards for the seniors. Everyone can blitz, but they got to start up, the imaginary line from either 7 or 9 yards back, depending on the age group. But they can't line up right over the center. And this is something that they always struggle. The coaches don't understand that. I go, if that rusher avoids getting hit, my referees are not going to call impeding the rusher. If the rusher does a straight line and they get hit, they're throwing that flag. So it's very vague in how that's interpreted, but if your officials are good enough, it could be called, and it can be called correctly if those steps are followed.
So great tips. I want to follow up on 3 things that Alex said. Number 1, the travel league is definitely a winner. Colton asked that question, Colton White. Anybody traveling on older soccer and flag? Yes, the travel piece will allow you to only have smaller teams. It doesn't have to be, multiple franchises. It can just be your neighbor next door. That's a great way to do 2 things. Show the younger kids, look, they're not here this week because they're playing down the street. Man, that's cool. That's like real football. They got a road game today, right? So that's a cool way to – and it also allows you to only field a couple of teams because we all have that problem. Senior Division 2 teams. Oh, my God, they've got to play each other every week, right? No. Form a travel league, make that happen. And you're right, Alex. Unfortunately, you got some hardcore I-9ers that are like, I signed up for this location. I don't want to drive, but it's a culture thing, and the more you do it, and I think that's what we're talking about with Chris, is we're going to make a line in the sand and say, okay, your child is now 9. If we're developmentally appropriate, your child needs to be on the travel league, and this is what we're doing because it's what's better for your son or child's development. And so I think the travel league is a great option. Alex, stay on the call since the more people up here, the better. And then the last thing about the blocking, look, blocking is tough, and we just have to all do it locally. But I like what he said, direct line to the flag puller. If I get impeded on my direct line, they're going to call a flag. And I think that's all we can do because we can't have physical contact that's designed. If Alex runs in front of me and we run into each other and knock each other down because he's running his route and I'm trying to get to it's like a pick play, parents for the most part are going, you know what? He literally was running across and my son ran into him. But if you come right at me and, run into me, then it's going to be a problem. So I think that's a good point. So some more questions here. I want to directly, you guys stay up here. This is a big one, and I think Joey said something about it. So what's everyone's stance on letting the quarterback rush after being blitzed? I've done both. I don't do it anymore because here's what will happen. And the reason you have to be, this is a general statement. When you put in new rules, your coaches are going to find those loopholes, and they're going to figure out how they can get around it. And as soon as we put in the quarterback rushing, they put their best player at quarterback. He had no intention of throwing. He was looking like he was going to throw it. I could hear the coach, hey, don't throw it. Just let the rusher come and then go score. So then that hurts our flag football because now you have one player dominating the play a little bit. I'm not saying you can't do it at the advanced levels, but for the younger kids developmentally, you want the center to have to hand it to somebody and him to have to give it to somebody else or throw it to somebody else. So we're getting 3 kids involved because we all get blamed for having daddy ball and your coach, the coach's son's the QB and all he does is run with the ball. So I'd like to have other people weigh in on the quarterback rushing thing, but we didn't like it, went away from it. But I do think it has a place in the older divisions when, you know what, the kid's 12, you need to make a tackle, you need to pull the flag. I mean, we're trying to make it real. So I think it's a developmental piece, but somebody else weigh in on the quarterback rush. Yeah, Joey, go ahead.
I can step back just for 1 second to the travel league. I just want to make a comment on that I would love for us to have that, because I know there could be a lot of details to get into with that. But the biggest thing on my mind is, especially when you're partnering with another area, or even if you have 2 areas that butt up against each other, the scheduling and communication aspect with parents. But like I said, I know that's probably a larger discussion, but I'd love to hear more about that. But talking about the blitzing or the quarterback running, we weren't doing it, and we just did it for the first time this season, and it's been done. Positive feedback from the referees, from the coaches, and the parents. We allow the quarterback to run when blitzed. So if you're going to put your best player blitzing my quarterback, and I'm going to put my best player at quarterback, I'm going to allow him to run. In a way, it's punishing you for blitzing. So, and also gives your less skilled players a chance to, hey, I mean, you teach them, do the pump fake. Everybody jumps every single time, and you're going to run 10, 15, 20 yards. You're going to get something out of it. The way you counter the best player on the field being the quarterback is you tell the defense, don't blitz, and now he has to throw.
That's a good tip. I want to let Jonathan weigh in. It's actually his question, but real quick to make a point on that, I think we have to be careful because developmentally, 4, 5, 6, and 7, I'm not so sure that quarterback should run. I've seen enough of that football where it's just going to be one kid.
Talking about the older kids here.
Older
kids.
Totally right. And Joey's agreeing. So I think we have to, and again, that kind of goes back to what Chris and we're all discussing is how do we say, hey, 4, 5, 6, 7, here's one set of rules. Now you're 10, 11, 12, 13. Look, we got a totally different set of rules for you. But Jonathan, go ahead and weigh in because you had originally asked the question.
Yeah, no, agreed. So this was actually made just for the senior division, the older kids. And it came up because, so I agree with the usually what happens is they put their best kid and they rush, but I kind of like the kind of helping kids, like if you know he's a good rusher, then you don't have to blitz them. It's kind of teaching them defensive schemes. So like, for example, in NFL, if I know Lamar Jackson, I'm not going to blitz him. I'm going to make him beat me with my arm. So you don't have to blitz him. So that's my whole idea is if he gets rushed, he can only run if he gets blitzed. And I don't know how everybody around the country plays flag football, but here growing up in Michigan, if you ask any guy, girl who played flag football or football, it's just, I think, common that everybody just learned that way. If you get blitzed, you're able to rush. And another thing I think is if you think all these kids watching NFL, in the new age of quarterback where you see all these running quarterbacks, I think they get inspiration from that. They're not the conventional Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. They're like the Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson running, razzle dazzle, juke them with your legs rather than throwing the ball. So that was just my take on it.
Well, Jonathan, I love that, right? Because again, it's what you see on TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if our parents, they watch college football, they watch pro football, and they come out and they say flag football, and they say, "What do you mean my kid can only score 3 goals, or he can't run? The quarterback can't run? Of course he can run." Lamar Jackson's my favorite player, and he's not able to. So I get it, right? I think we just have to be careful on the age groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, absolutely, juniors is tough because I've seen a lot of football here where, I've got 3 divisions. This current season, I have 3 divisions of flag football in junior division, just that 8 to 10, right? I've got. Don't take this personally, guys, on my conferences, but I have the Big 12, which is the beginner group. Then I have the Pac-12, which is the intermediate, and then I have the SEC, which is the best group, right? And so when you look at the different in age groups, wow, the SEC full teams. I mean, they got wristbands and iPads, and they know where they're going. Big 12, they're clueless. They don't even know how to catch. They fall down. They can't run and chew gum. And so the challenge is how do we make it that specific? Because I think the biggest issue is I look at my smaller leagues and have to say, this is what the majority of I-9s look like, right? Maybe 100 to 200 kids in flag football. Well, you can't make separate divisions there. So how do we do it when Larry Jackson's the best player on the field? I've never thrown, caught, I can't do anything. Alex is in the middle. How do we make it fun for all three? Larry doesn't want to throw it to me because it's going to hit me in the face and I'm not going to catch it. I'm intimidated when Larry throws me the ball because he's much bigger than I am and I'm going to run the other direction. Got Alex in the middle. So, I think that's our challenge, right? We can make rules that help those things, but the key is I've just watched so many of my smaller leagues and said, I don't know how to make this better because if my age group is 4 to 6 and 7 to 9 and 10 to 13, I'm doomed from the start because I just can't. I can't be a really competitive league because I've got a fourth grade 9-year-old throwing to a first grade 7-year-old. Could happen, right? You can have 4 grades in a 3 age group split. You can have 4 different grades because of the way the birthday falls. And we do age and grades. But again, the point is, I got a kid who's almost 3 years older, developmentally stronger, bigger, playing on the same field as a little kid. So I think we have 2 challenges. I think we have that challenge, and I think we have creating developmental rules that allow everyone to have a better time on the field. What we're talking about is awesome, and the older kids are great, and that's a win. The travel leagues, the advanced rules, got to do it. I think that's a win. It's just, I feel like this whole discussion is about how to make flag football better, and I think it's different components, right? It's the first 4 or 5 ages have to have their own set of rules, and then the middle, and then the older, and so. But this is a great discussion. You guys stay on the thing. So next question was from Erica Alt. I know we discussed this on the Facebook thread, but can we discuss what everyone does for the last minute of each half? Who stops the clock? How does the 6 plays once you get to 1 minute happen, or any other options? I'll go first, and then we can all lay in. So I just do clock stops inside of a minute, second quarter, fourth quarter. That can be an out of bounds play or a timeout, and it just runs off of that. And we don't do set number of plays. We try to make it, again, more like what you see on TV. If they throw it and they catch it in bounds, the flag is pulled, the clock is running unless you call a timeout or they go out of bounds. So, but what do you guys do for the last minute inside of quarters? Alex, you go first.
So I have a separate rules for Pee-wees, juniors, and elite. Pee-wees is as basic as it can be. I give a 2-minute warning. At the 2-minute warning, just like the NFL does. Out of bounds, clock stops for those young age groups. The game takes a little bit longer, but I think the Pee-wees need that extra attention, as we call it, teaching moments for those 5 to 7 or 5 to young 8-year-olds, depending how I break it up. The juniors is again 2, and there's 2 timeouts per half. My official will stop the clock at the 2-minute warning, saying it's 18-6, red ball is second down. They got 1 timeout or no timeouts left, kind of to let everyone know what's going on. And it just runs regularly. Out of bounds, clock stops. Once the official sets the cones, the line, the clock starts. I enforce a 30-second huddle for my juniors and the elite division. I don't enforce a 30-second huddle for the Pee-wees. It's just, basic recreational football. With my elite program, I've changed it a couple of times, and the way that it's worked out, the best is after that 2-minute warning, when the official stops the clock and advises what's going on, where we're at, the clock does not stop unless it's a penalty, a scored touchdown, or a timeout. So really, it's hurry up offense. It's called elite for a reason. They just got to save their timeouts, because the last 2 minutes, if they have no timeouts and there's no scoring, you can maybe run 4 plays.
But if you run out, Alex, if you run out of bounds, does the clock stop?
No,
Okay.
no, inside of 2 minutes.
Got it. Okay.
Actually, for elite and juniors, my clock runs throughout. The games just take too long. It's just, we want to keep it. We want to keep it. So the clock does not stop. It only stops, and that's where coaching comes in, and that leadership of the players. If you want to play in the elite division or in the junior division to play in the elite, the clock does not run. I did extend the elite time to 25 minutes a half instead of 20. Juniors is 22 minutes, and elite is 25. Running clock. Now, what changes for the elite is that inside of a minute, if there's a score, the clock stops. The clock does not run for the extra point. Once the offense gets the ball and the officials are set with their cones, the clock is starting. So really it's having, hurry up offense, the NFL way, just to consider, just to make it, like that exciting. But the timeouts become key, and the coaches will save it because they know that they don't have any time after that official calls the 2-minute warning.
Gotcha. Larry, what do you do? Before Larry, I want you to weigh in, but I want to say something to Joey mentioned we do halves, not quarters. I do halves as well. I'm not sure why I said quarters. So we do 2 halves, and it stops inside of a minute, second half and first half and second half. But Larry, what do y'all do?
I thought that was pretty interesting, Alex, how you changed that for your different age groups. It's a cool idea. I wonder though, in your 25-minute games, are you still able to close it out within an hour with the 2-minute halftime?
It takes about an hour. It takes about an hour and 15 minutes. Again,
Okay.
We're catering to that competitive, to that
Right.
every region is different. So yeah,
It's your last game of the day, so you have the field space. Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah, not necessarily. Like sometimes I have them in early at 8 a.m., 8:30 in the morning because I have an
Oh,
open.
wow.
And I get them in. Half the teams don't show up because they fall asleep, 3 in the morning, but that's not my problem.
Got it. Hey, John.
To answer your question, Scott, I
Oh,
do it
sorry.
probably like you do. I mean, I do the 20-minute halves. I do the 1 minute, stop the clock at the 1 minute, and I do that all the same. My clocks don't change regardless of the age group, except for my 3 and 4 year olds where we only do 15-minute halves. And the refs have a lot on their mind, right? I mean, particularly we got 1 ref. I don't know about everybody else. I know some people are doing 2, but we keep it at 1, except for a championship game, in which in championship games we try to get 2 out there for those. But it's a lot of numbers, and those numbers add up on you throughout the day. And then sometimes I got to go out there and be the ref too.
Yep.
So I'm very familiar with how those numbers, what down is it? How much time you got on the clock? How many timeouts are there? You got all these numbers going through your head. So, I always believe that we should try to keep things as simple as possible wherever we can. And to me, that's one of those areas, the clock, time. Hope I answered the question.
So before Jonathan weighs in, I want to touch on that too. I think that scale creates issues as well, and I'm in the same boat as Larry. My refs, we already have separate rules for each age group based on developmentally sound play. The last thing, we have different quarter lengths and basket heights and ball sizes. The more I add on their plate, they don't do a great job of necessarily getting it all right. They forget what age group they're reffing. They forget this is the seniors. It's supposed to be 25 minutes. And so I have found keeping it as consistent and basic as possible throughout the day helps our refs. But if you've got refs that can do it, that's fantastic. Jonathan, how about you? What do y'all do for the inside the?
So I do the same thing as you do, the halves, and then basically it's running clock until that last minute, and then basically any dead ball is when the clock stops, so out of bounds, timeouts. And the nice thing too is we have our refs shout out the time, so I think the parents like that a lot, but also the coaches know how much time is left on the clock.
Awesome.
And then additionally too, for the younger ones, we keep 1 ref because it's easier. But for the older ages, we do have 2 refs just because they do get a lot more competitive and they're looking for they get more specific on the call. So 1, it makes it more efficient and easier for the coaches. So 1 can kind of focus on the time, and the other 1 can focus calling on the right calls. And I've got a lot of feedback that the coaches really, really like that because they seem to get the calls more right. Because if 1 calls a right call or wrong call, they can converse with the other 1, and then they can make a decision. And refs appreciate that. Our coaches appreciate that.
And so that's,
Sorry, Scott, Jonathan. And we used to do it that way about 3 or 4 years ago. Again, every region is going to have, like Scott started this call, every region is different, and they're going to adapt to what the rules are. What we were getting is that the game, in that elite group, that minute would last 20 minutes. Bounce, 5 yards out of bounds, 5 yards out of bounds. Those players are that good that they can nickel and dime it all the way down the field. And that last minute would take literally 10 minutes. And because they're stopping the clock, they get the first down, they get another set of 4 downs. So we did away with stopping the clock. We added more time to 25 minutes but it's a running. Except for those a couple of instances that I said, we changed it because we were like saying, we're here for 40 minutes, for the game. Players are that good at that age, but for you, that's great.
Thanks.
So Nate was asking that question: is when is a good time to move to 2 refs? And so I'm going to give you a different perspective on that. Currently, on a Saturday, I have to get 230 refs for all my locations. So for me to get 2 refs, it's just not really physically capable at this point in time. I don't want to deal with it. I've got one guy who handles all my refs, but that's how you differentiate. When you have your own place and you just have one franchise or a couple locations, you want to make it look as professional as possible. And there's no question that 2 refs would help those older kids. It's going to look more professional. Coach, you're going to love it. Just remember, as you grow, right, when you get to be, in my one location, I've got 7 fields of flag football going on at the same time. To get 14 refs would be a challenge. And you have refs call out every week. So I think 2 refs is awesome. And I think you have to look at, if you're only going to run a 1 or 2 franchise and 1 or 2 locations, to get it as big as you can, do whatever you can to make it look the best and to get as many people playing. And that's how you're going to compete against the Under Armours and some others, because they do have 2 refs in Under Armour, at least the ones locally do, and some ones do. So I think 2 refs is awesome. We don't do it just because it's a scale issue, but I think it's a fantastic way to do it. Let's talk about, Joey asked about mercy rule ideas. So there's and if anyone else would like to come on stage, we can have 50 people on stage. So please raise your hand and jump up. These guys I appreciate you guys getting up here and sharing your time, but we need different perspectives because that's what makes us all better. So I'll go first on the mercy rule idea. We have verbiage to the coach to say, look, if Larry and I are playing a football game and he's already up 3 touchdowns, my expectation is for him to stop rushing my quarterback, change his quarterback, 3 touchdown limit for every kid that can either that's throwing or catching or running. So once somebody has 3 touchdowns, they have to play on defense. But really, we can put a lot of rules in place, but it falls on 2 people: the ref, your refs who you're paying, and your coaches. So when it's 10 minutes left in the game and Larry's up 28-0, my expectation is for Larry to back off a little bit, because if I can score a touchdown or 2 and then it's 35-14 or 28-14, that looks a lot better than he just keeps putting the hammer down, rushing 5 guys, and now it's 45-0. So we go through and look at scores, and when we see scores are lopsided, we'll make calls to those coaches, say, hey, man, how do you win 62-0? Come on, you got to be doing something different there, right? That's not good for anybody. And so it also falls on your refs. Like, I get a lot of angry coaches sometimes telling me, man, Scott, second half of the game, every call was against us. I said, okay, coach, what was the score? Well, it was 38-0. I'm like, well, that's why all the calls are going against you, because you need to back off and let the other kids have a chance. We can't tell the kids to quit playing hard, right? But as a coach, you certainly know you have the capability to say, all right, Roger's my best rusher. Roger, go take a break for the second part of the second half, or why don't you be the center for a little bit, and I can manipulate that game to not look like we're not trying as hard, but also allow for positive play to happen. Now, I'm not saying you should do this in the elite level, because in the elite level, if you don't like us scoring, stop us from scoring, right? The old Nick Saban, if you don't want us to score, stop us. But you got to be careful in those younger ages. So a lot of mercy rules with number of touchdowns, number of plays for a player. But Roger's been trying to get on. Here's our ex-football player, so let's let him weigh in a little bit on that, and then we'll grab some through. So, Roger, what do y'all do for mercy rule stuff?
Mercy rules. Whatever the score is, including a tie during the season, it is what it is. If it's a tie, that's not a big deal. But obviously in the playoffs, we continue it. We go to like a sudden death where you have 4 downs inside the 20 to score. And it's kind of like the college rules on that one. And that's very fun and exciting. The tie factor in the middle of the season is pretty cool. You know what? We haven't had anyone balk at that. So it's more important for us to keep on schedule during the season and see where the record falls too. And then that's where it really comes into play, points scored, and things like that, all those deciding factors that we already have pre-built in for us.
Now, Roger, what about when we're playing a game and it's 28-0 and there's 10 minutes left in the game and you've already scored 3 touchdowns?
isn't our mercy rule? I want to say it's 4 or 5 touchdowns is what it is, and then we quit score at that point. You know, we just because we have a scoreboard, so we don't keep score. We did at one point try to switch teammates up. That doesn't really work well. You just let them play things out, and you encourage the other team. Okay, hey, look, put someone else in at quarterback, and then before the mercy rule even hits, our refs already know to talk to that other team that's jumping ahead. Say, hey, go into more of a prevent style. Quit blitzing. Let's make this a little bit more balanced. And we generally don't even hit mercy rules at this point.
Our mercy rule is.
Well, I think that's the key that Roger's saying is that it's really up to the ref and the coach to manage that, right? And if they're not doing that, then we're failing somewhere. We either didn't tell the coach what's going on, or our ref didn't do a good job of really watching. He's watching the score. He's just playing ref in the game and not watching the score, right? And I get on my refs all the time about that. You got to pay attention. Larry, what about anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I have it built into my rules. It's about a 1-paragraph thing built right into my rules, and it's a 28-point differential. Nobody can ever be more than 28 points ahead. And if you get to that point, then all of your players on defense have to stand behind the 7-yard beanbag, and they can't rush. And in fact, they can't even go past the 7-yard beanbag. So that means that quarterback, they're going to get 7 yards at a minimum if they're smart enough, right? If they actually run the ball and get their 7 yards, you know, they can do that all the way up till the point where they can make a score. Not everybody digests that real well, but I mean, you know, but that's how our mercy rule works. And of course, when they get 21 ahead, our refs are already talking to them, like you guys talked about. You know, they're like, "You're at 21. You know, once you hit that mercy rule." Oh, by the way, I don't. They are allowed to have their possession, but they can't score any more points, right? And we also don't log points either. So when that other team does their 7 yards all the way down the field and scores, makes everybody feel better on that team, right? But now it's still 7:28. It's not 7:35 because they got, you know, other touchdowns that we didn't write down for them. We don't log their scores, so it's going to be 7:28 or whatever, you know, 7:35 wherever we were at that 28-point differential.
That's good. Chet, do you have something for us, or are we just?
Yeah, Scott, I just want to, so I think 12:30 is the kind of official cutoff. So I just want to mention a couple things here too. When we drop out of the presentation mode, and people are not aware of this already because you probably haven't seen this technology yet, but you will drop out into a mode where you'll be sitting at a table, and it'll be pretty intuitive. You can actually unmute yourself and turn your mic on, and then we'll have a lot of time, an extra hour. I think we're going to leave this up where people can rotate and talk at tables. So feel free to jump around, and you just double click on the tables and stuff like that. So I just want to say, you know, probably 12:30, Scott, if you're okay with that, we'll take this down, presentation mode, and then we'll jump in there where people can circulate a little bit. So if you're not getting your questions answered, or you got other concerns or questions, we can continue to do that as well.
So Chet, before you log off, so at 12:30, can I just go to table 1? And if you want to come to table 1 to talk to me, because I have a couple people that want to do that. So does that work for?
Yeah, Scott, make yourself available at table 1, and then and you guys, you'll see it's a little amorphous right now because you're like, what is this whole table thing? It'll become pretty obvious when we drop down what's going on. So, okay.
So I'm going to hit a couple more questions here. Todd Peterson asked, for the travel leagues, do you maintain the same time schedule each week, or could Saturday at one venue play at Sunday at another?
No, it changes. The venue changes and the times change. I have times all the way starting at, practice at 8 a.m. in the morning, all the way through 2 o'clock in the afternoon, different venues. Because of COVID, we used to have 4. Pre-COVID, we had 4 venues that they all traveled to. Now we have 2, so it makes it a little bit easier for travel, but everything changes. It's their responsibility to follow the schedule that they have. I wanted to just piggyback on the mercy rule. Larry, I like that about having the rush line, like not allowing them to rush. What we do with our elite group is we ask the coaches once it gets to 28 point spread, and it's been my experience that the coaches will not accept the mercy rule. They want to play. If they lose 42-0, they lose 42-0. But the official will bring both coaches together, saying we're at this point. what do you guys want to do? And we kind of learned with the elite, it's kind of like a little bit embarrassing for the team that's losing that they, they're all pretty good teams. Just one is just better than the other. They don't want to feel that they scored a couple touchdowns because the other team was letting them. It is acknowledged. If they agree, we'll do it. If they don't agree, then we keep playing. With the juniors, it is enforced because they are juniors. It's kind of, bringing it up to that level of competition. When you're in 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, if you get beat, 50-0, you get beat, 50-0. To that point also, we do allow teams to pack it up. If you want to bring your 10 players to play, we will honor all 10 players to play. We don't follow the I-9 rule of limiting it to 4 or 5 or whatever it is. We bring everybody. I have 2 teams right now in the junior division that have 12 players. Coaches understand, and more importantly, the families understand that if you want to play with that team, Johnny may only play 4 plays. But you're choosing. I have a team with 9 players. The son will play more. But if you want to play with that coach, it comes with this condition, and they're okay with that. It takes the load off the officials to make sure that everyone gets rotated in and out because that family has chosen to play with that coach.
So I want to address that too, that Alex said. So I would never suggest for any AD to limit the number of signups per team. I just don't think that's a good idea. I think if Alex wants to bring his entire 2nd grade team and play with us and 15 kids are in the class, I'd be crazy to limit that. Now, does it create some inequities? It can. And you're going to get Listen 360 feedback that says, this is what's funny. It's very funny to me. You're going to get both sides of it. You're going to get the customer that says, I had to play Alex's team, and they had 15 players, and they got all this rest, and we lost, and we only had 8, and even though my son played the whole game, he was tired. And then you're going to also get the one that says, well, why are we playing players? It's not fair. I mean, people, you got to get over it. It's your child's having a chance to play unlimited. But like Alex said, I get that all the time. I've got full divisions of football of 100 kids all signing up as teams together. You do not want to limit that because select baseball teams are going to want to come play with you. Select soccer teams to get a break on a Saturday want to come as a group. You don't. Advice is free. I would not limit that because I think it hurts your ability to have more people signing up for your league. We're trying to do 2 things, right? And I think it's hard to not lose sight. First of all, we're trying to run sports leagues and provide to the community and have a good place for people. We're also trying to make money. And given we're a small business and given what's been happening in the last year or 2, we need to make money. And don't do things that would don't ever cut off your registration. My people sign up 2 weeks after the league has started, and I add people to teams. Organization, if you fear that you're not going to be able to do it, you're giving up too much money. I think I told people on a call the other day that this season we're currently in, I brought in 24% of the revenue of my league within a week of the start date. So that's Sunday through Saturday before we started, and after. I mean, the week after, I'll get 6-8% more signups. Mm-hmm. The following week, I'll get another 4 or 5% sign up. Don't ever limit your sign up. I would not limit your amount of players that can sign up on one team. Yes, are you going to have Andrew who brings his whole team? They've played together for 6 seasons, and they're much better than everybody else. It's going to happen. But you manipulate that schedule so that the first week you identify if the 4 guys on the screen that are all playing, and I know that Larry Jackson's got a pretty good team, guess who's playing first week? Larry and Jonathan, so that Roger and Alex have the opportunity to get a week of play under their belt before they have to pick it. And in many cases, I've done 2 or 3 weeks where I've said, hey, Larry and Jonathan play with me every season. Guess what? Y'all are going to play the scrimmage and the first game against each other. That way, Alex and Roger have 2 weeks to prep before they got to play against the tough teams. So don't limit your sign-up, manipulate the schedule and control that and allow that. And one more thing I think that really helps a lot. We level all of our schedules halfway through the season, meaning we look at the scores. And if Andrew's 4-0 and Larry's 0-4 and they're scheduled to play, they're not playing. I'm going to put Jonathan against Alex, who's 3-1, and Roger, who's 1-3, is going to play Larry, who's 0-4. Even in a 4-team division, does that mean multiple teams play each other at the same time? It does. You get 6 teams, it really helps. You get 8 teams, you make 2 divisions, an A and a B, and now you've got an A division, top 4, B division, bottom 4. So and that's probably repetitive. I know a lot of guys are nodding their head, but that is a way you get around allowing a lot of kids signing up together. And just because they sign up together doesn't mean they're going to be good, but it can, and over time it does. Sometimes it's just my daughter's first grade class all wanting to play together, and we lose every game, but we have a good time, and that's all that matters. So don't limit the sign up. I would not limit the sign up if you can. I'm going to go to a couple more questions here. Well, you guys all stay on for me. So, and I don't really know the answer to this one as much, but how are the rules for Under Armour NFL flag? Would it be wise for us to modify our rules to mimic theirs? I don't know exactly. I don't think there's a big deviation in our rules, but if somebody else on the panel could weigh in, that'd be great. If you know,
I've been up against Under Armour since they started, and if you guys don't know, they started right here in my backyard, unfortunately. But when they came along for us, it was frustrating. The experience of it was frustrating. How they started was frustrating for me, but then they went nationally very quick after that. And so all of that was very frustrating, but they also took away a lot of those highly competitive people that I had been kicking out anyway, so there are those people that really were not I-9 cultured types of families that I wouldn't want in the league or a lot of them I've kicked out. So it kind of worked out okay for a while in that regard. As far as the rules differences, no, I still like our rules better. Under Armour is a pass-only league. They don't allow you to run the ball at all, and I don't think that's true for football. I mean, I think that they're doing the kids a disservice by limiting the game to pass only, and their fields are much smaller than ours too, and so there's a lot of rules that they have that to me, and not just me, but the coaches that also play in both leagues. There's a lot of the rules that they don't like either. However, having said that, they also still play in both leagues because to them it's another opportunity to play football, and it is a different type of spice, right? I mean, Under Armour leagues are the ones where the coaches are screaming at each other and there's fights and there's cops called out and all that drama that happens out there that you're never going to see on my fields because we stop that before it ever gets out of control. But we live in a crazy world, and some people enjoy that atmosphere. They can have it, as far as I'm concerned.
And so, just to piggyback a little bit, NFL flag, I've seen their rules. They're not too different from what we. Oh, and also they're local. I think they change them up too because I've got two different locations that are 20 miles apart that one guy plays pass only in NFL and one guy doesn't. So I don't know that there's a set of. I'm sure there's a set of rules, but just like what we are, I think we all manipulate the rules to change them. And I think that's important, guys, that we all are okay with changing rules locally to fit whatever we think is going to best benefit the business. That's the benefit of being a small business owner is we need to say, hey, in Florida, in Dade County, this is what the tackle leagues do, this is what everybody else does. I'm going to do that. Or do something different to set myself apart, but I can make that decision. I think that, again, is where the home office struggles a little bit with wanting continuity. I get that email all the time. Hey, Scott, gosh, we played in Colorado. What is going on down here in Texas? I said, well, I mean, this is it. It's different. This is how we roll down here, and that's how they roll up there, and that's okay. And they said, and the guy was like, look, I'm not complaining. It's just different. I said, yeah. I mean, we're all doing what we think works best, and I think that's the way to do it. And so another question that Antoine asked was, do you do playoffs if you're manipulating the schedules? Absolutely. And so you may have to have a conversation with Coach Jonathan and say, Jonathan, look, you're the number 1 seed, but for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have you play the number 2 seed. And those games, we're going to put the scores in the system, but they don't necessarily count towards the seedings. You've earned the number 1 spot, but I want you to play Alex again because y'all had a 21-14 game. And if you go play Roger or Larry, it's going to be 35-0. And I'm not doing that. So it's all about communicating with the coaches and getting them to buy into what you're doing. And look, if Jonathan's a coach that you want in your league, he's going to be like, yeah, I'd much rather play Alex and have a close game than go blow a team out that I've already blown out. So the key there is don't just follow the set schedule. We very seldom follow the set schedule. And you got to look at your scores. You got to, after week 1 and 2, you got to look at your scores and say, what is going on with team 1? 0 goals, 14 against. They're not having, it's awful, right? It happens in all of our leagues where you've got teams that, I've got a basketball team down south that hasn't scored a basket in 4 games. What is happening? You look at the rosters. I got a logistics guy who does an amazing job with the averages and all this. He does this whole Excel spreadsheet. I'm like, hey, bro, coefficients ain't working here, brother. What is going on? This team hasn't scored a bucket. I'm not talking about a touchdown. I'm talking about a throwing up shots and they can't get it to go in the basket. I told the ref, heck, pick a kid up and put it in the basket. We got to have some buckets, man. But the point is, you get that, and no matter how well you manage your rosters or do whatever you can, it doesn't always, paper does not translate into athletic ability on the field or size, weight, age, grade, experience level. So we have to be able to look at our business closely enough. And it's as big as I am, my guys do it some, and it falls through the cracks, and I'll get an email, Scott, we played 6 games and then you didn't score a point. And now you've lost those 8 kids. What do you do there? It's a tough deal, but that's why I'm saying you've got to manipulate your schedules and your teams and your playoffs and all that stuff to help those teams have a better experience and to make it better for the people that you're playing against. Yeah. Roger.
Hey, Scott, I've heard you mention a few times on the call, you adjusting your schedules. What have you done to change the culture as far as your communication? I can see, I imagine you probably do this on a Monday to retweak things. And then how do your parents know when to look towards their schedule? Because inevitably in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, there's always that one parent that prints off their schedule, puts it on the refrigerator, and then they're showing up at the wrong time. Yeah. What do you do to combat
So we do 2 things, and we haven't done it as much lately, but typically we send a mid-season update. And in that mid-season update, it says some teams have been some schedules have been re-leveled for leveling for more competitive purpose. So we're telling them specifically why we're doing it, because then you change the schedule. And Alice goes, I was playing Saturday at 2. That works great. I got a birthday party at 5. Now you can switch the game, right? And so you're going to run into those instances where people get upset for changing the schedule. Obviously, outside, if most of your divisions play at the same time, you're okay because you're not really changing the schedule. It really only happens in basketball where the quote-unquote schedule changes, because if we're all playing soccer in the 8-year-old division, we're all typically playing at 2 o'clock on Saturday. So by switching the schedule, it doesn't hurt you. But indoors is definitely a challenge. So we communicate mid-season leveling, or and we have a paragraph in there about try to create a better experience. We've made 2 divisions, or we put the top teams against each other and the teams with no wins, and to try to communicate as much as you can. But it's definitely helped some. You get some of the hardcore coaches are like, well, I just want to get the W against I'm supposed to play the bad team this week. Why can't I play them? I'm like, well, you can't, because you shouldn't want that. But
great point, Scott and Roger. That's a great point, and it all goes back to communicating. What I try and do, specifically in the travel program, that the schedule does change awful lot. It's a lot easier because they kind of expect that they're going to be playing in different venues and at different times. We will communicate if we ever do that. We try and just, if you have like 8, 10, 12 teams and you have 2 or 3 games going on at the same time, it's pretty easy just to move one team in that same time. They're just playing a different team that'll be more competitive with one another. I also want to just throw in there that this helps. Our junior division is helped by having elite games play right next to them, or maybe 2 fields down, whatever, because that Johnny, that's 12 and a half years old, and he's done with the junior flag football, but he weighs 65 pounds. It's good to show him that there's other junior teams that are now elevated to the elite group, have 4, 5, 12-year-olds that are playing, but they're playing with 13, 14, and 15-year-olds to kind of blend the team to give them some experience. So the communication with a junior, I think it helps the junior division, and it also brings that factory into the elite. That once I weeded out the competitive players that I had when I inherited the second franchise, I let them play. We had to call cops. We had fights. We had all that stuff. But once those people were gone, now was the I-9 kids playing in the elite division. And that goes from not only the players, but for the parents and the coaches. They were fostered in the I-9 culture for 8 years. They're going to be good, a good example of what I-9 is, no matter what age group they are. So it helps the juniors. It definitely helps the elite division, but the communication is key, and it's good to have them playing at the same time so that those juniors have something to look forward to.
Well, to piggyback on that, that's how we need to show all of our customers, competitive parents and or kids, what the next level is. So I use soccer as a better example because little peewee and peewee soccer to some people is silly. You know, it's just a cluster of 10 kids. There's no goalie. It doesn't look like real soccer. Well, I have that on one set of fields, and then right next to it, I have the 6 and up that plays with goalies and corner flags and bigger goals. And so that way, at least the parent, even the hardcore soccer guy, my neighbor's a hardcore, he's from England, you know, hardcore soccer, brings his kid up from, what, Scott, what is this crap we're playing on the pitch? This is not even a pitch. It's not there's no, I'm like, okay, buddy, just look. And I said, look over there. He's like, oh, okay. So when my kid turned 6, his kid was already a stud, so I moved him up. But I mean, you want to have at every level where the parent and the player can say, I want to aspire to be in that group. I want to move up to the next level and have the next level of growth. And that's the key for us, I think, to get over this starter model that we have. So we've earned it in a good way because we have kind of dominated that area for the most part, but we don't want to be pegged as just that. So we've got to be able to show, hey, this is starter over here, but look, when you get better, we have the next level for you to play at. Roger, you had a point?
Yeah, I think at the start of this conversation, we were talking about peewees and directional or whatnot. I didn't get a chance to comment on that. We've done both, but what we have transitioned to is just the 4 downs, 1 direction, and that's worked really well. But what it also does is kind of shows that path. Okay, you start here, now you move up to juniors, and then or minors and juniors, and then ultimately we want that travel scenario to happen. And I think that shows progression in your league, and you know that's what I think we need to look not only in our football programs, all of our programs. If we can show that there's development if you stay, and if parents can see that out on the field, that's great.
So just so you know, for those of you who don't know, Roger played high school, collegiate, professionally. So it's good to have someone on the call that has that expertise and understands that if we're going to go to the next level, we do have to have a progression. And, you know, 2 major things have happened in the industry. The NFL players buying the NFL shows that the NFL's flag is struggling. That's not necessarily a negative. Now, what they do with it remains to be seen. And that will be the interesting thing that happens is that how they can integrate that and make it better or make it worse, or if they don't have time for it, or if they're focused on other things. So, you know, Russell Wilson just came out. He's the spokesperson for NFL flag and all this stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Under Armour has not done well in most locations. I know it's great in Florida, which I would expect that's where it's from, but it hasn't done well in Texas, hasn't done well in other places. And that model of the commissioner model is not very lucrative. So you typically don't get great people running it. And that's a positive for us because it's not like I-9. They're not getting the full amount of what they work for, at least not the model that I've seen. So the timing is really good here. And that's what Chris talked about. I'm going to kind of summarize this, so we got just a minute or 2 left. But, you know, Chris was saying the next 12 to 18 months are, as we come out of this pandemic and as we get people back to playing sports and try to be normal or the new normal, we have a tremendous opportunity to almost rebrand or remarket ourselves as the youth sports leader. And I'm going to need everybody. There's still 37 people on the call. I need everybody here to really help us push and support Chris in what he's going to push out. Because as you know, Brian Sanders, I love him to death, great guy. He's conservative. He does not push the needle very often. So we're going to have to help get behind Chris and push this new agenda and push this needle so that we can make some productive and needed changes, not just in the areas of programming and sports, but marketing and digital media. We've got a few areas that the FAC is focused on trying to improve, and support from the network is going to be critical. So we've got about 30 seconds left. Thank you, Alex, Jonathan, Larry, Roger, for jumping on. These are fun. I love this platform. I want to do more of this. So I'll get with Chet and we'll try to do this. We're all going to drop off in about 20 seconds into these tables. If you'd like to stay on, I'm going to go to table 1. We can have some more discussions. And just appreciate everybody getting on the call and look forward to doing this again. Chet, you have anything to tell me?
That's it. I'll be around at the tables if anybody needs a little bit of
Hey, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, Scott.